Welcome to our channel. Today we're exploring key global events from history to today, from the invention of the radio to ongoing geopolitical shifts. Stay with us until the end, as we dive into how these events shape the world we live in. Here's a question for you. Which historical event do you think had the biggest impact on today's world? Drop your answer in the comments.
On this day in 1520, Charles V was crowned as Holy Roman Emperor. This event had a profound impact on the political and religious developments in Europe and strengthened the power of the Church and monarchies across the continent. On this day in 1648, the Treaty of Westphalia was signed, ending the 30 Years' War in Europe. This treaty fundamentally altered the political and religious structure of Europe and helped lay the foundation for modern state systems. On this day in 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte and his Grand Army were forced to retreat after their unsuccessful invasion of Russia. This defeat was a turning point in the Napoleonic Wars and weakened France's power. On this day in 1857, the first transatlantic telegraph line between the United States and Europe was completed. This achievement revolutionized global communications, accelerating trade and diplomatic relations between countries. On this day in 1895, Guglielmo Marconi invented the radio, sparking a revolution in global communication and paving the way for the development of mass media and long-distance communication. On this day in 1901, Antoni Gaudí, the famous Spanish architect, began work on Parc Güell in Barcelona. This park is considered one of the masterpieces of modern architecture and a significant symbol of 20th century design. On this day in 1917, the October Revolution began in Russia. The Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, took power, founding the Soviet Union, which had profound effects on global politics and the Cold War. On this day in 1929, Black Tuesday occurred on Wall Street, leading to the stock market crash and the onset of the Great Depression. This economic crisis had global repercussions on industry, trade, and employment. On this day in 1945, the United Nations Charter was ratified in San Francisco, officially establishing the United Nations. This was one of the most significant global efforts to maintain international peace and security after World War II. On this day in 1956, the Suez Crisis began. The joint attack by Britain, France, and Israel on Egypt followed the nationalization of the Suez Canal by Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser, pushing the world towards a major crisis. On this day in 1964, popular uprisings against the Ba'ath regime occurred in Iraq. These revolts, led by Kurds and Shiites, had significant impacts on Iraq's political trajectory. On this day in 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis reached its peak, bringing the world to the brink of nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union.
If you're enjoying our content, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Your support helps us create more insightful videos for you.
Decisions made during these tense days prevented the outbreak of a global conflict. On this day in 1973, OPEC decided to cut off oil supplies to countries supporting Israel, leading to a global energy crisis. This event had major impacts on the world economy and caused many countries to rethink their energy policies. On this day in 1980, Iran and Iraq were engaged in a severe war, and the Iran-Iraq War continued. This conflict, one of the largest and bloodiest in the Middle East, had deep ramifications for the region. On this day in 1983, a bomb exploded in U.S. military barracks in Beirut, killing over 200 U.S. military personnel. This was one of the deadliest attacks against U.S. forces in modern history. On this day in 1991, Iraqi forces, under the orders of Saddam Hussein, launched attacks against the Kurds, resulting in the deaths of many people in Iraqi Kurdistan. This event had profound effects on Kurdish nationalist movements. On this day in 1998, a suicide bombing against U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, planned by al-Qaeda, killed hundreds. This attack marked the beginning of broader global efforts to combat terrorism. On this day in 2003, China's Shenzhou 5 spacecraft successfully completed the country's first manned space mission. This mission made China the third nation to send a human into space. On this day in 2008, the global financial crisis reached its peak, and many major banks worldwide collapsed. This crisis caused severe fluctuations in global financial markets and led to a widespread economic downturn. On this day in 2014, the ISIS group launched a massive attack on the city of Kobani in Syrian Kurdistan, met with fierce resistance from Kurdish forces. This battle became one of the key moments in the war against ISIS and had significant regional impacts. On this day in 2015, the Paris Climate Agreement was signed, marking one of the most important international efforts to combat climate change and protect the environment. On this day in 2019, popular uprisings in Iraq began against government corruption. These protests led to significant changes in Iraq's political structure, with the role of the Kurdish people being prominent in these developments. On this day in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic was affecting the world, and international efforts to control the virus intensified. During this time, the world was focused on research and development of effective vaccines for the disease. On this day in 2022, scientists made significant advances in cancer treatment using new nanoparticle technologies. This progress provided new hopes for treating cancer and other deadly diseases. On this day in 2023, international environmental organizations issued warnings about the deteriorating climate situation globally, and efforts to combat global warming and preserve biodiversity were intensified. On this day in 2024, significant advancements were made in artificial intelligence and technology, pushing the world towards further progress in these fields. Here's the section on recent developments in different fields over the past 24 hours. Politics. Conflicts between Israel and Palestine continue, with tensions escalating between Israeli forces and Hamas.
If you're enjoying our content, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Your support helps us create more insightful videos for you.
Russia's nuclear threats and NATO's movements in the Baltic region have also drawn global attention. Science and technology. China successfully launched a new satellite into Earth's orbit as part of its latest space mission. Meanwhile, advancements in artificial intelligence have brought breakthroughs in robotics and natural language processing. Medicine. New progress in gene therapy has been reported, offering promising treatments for some rare genetic disorders. Environment. The UN has released a report highlighting the alarming state of climate change, calling for urgent action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Cinema. A new movie titled Discovery premiered at the Tokyo International Film Festival, receiving positive reviews. 1. Iran-Israel tensions. Reports indicate that the United States is concerned that Iran may launch an attack on Israel within the next 24 to 48 hours. These concerns have escalated after increased tensions following the Israel-Hamas conflict. Recently, drones linked to Iran-backed groups have targeted Israeli areas such as Eilat and the Golan Heights. Additionally, the Pentagon is investigating potential leaks of Israel's attack plans on Iran, which could further intensify the situation. 2. U.S. elections. The Middle East has become a key issue in the U.S. presidential campaign. Rising tensions between Iran and Israel are seen as an October surprise that could influence American voters, particularly in foreign policy discussions. Former President Donald Trump has openly spoken about his relationship with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, while other candidates, like Kamala Harris, emphasize the need to stabilize the situation.